Hello, this is my 27th take of this voiceover. Today I'll be guiding you in crocheting this ribbon badge or corsage using this visual pattern I found on Pinterest that I will link in the description below. This is a follow as you go tutorial for first-time crocheters and beginners. For those who are more experienced, you can skip on ahead using the timecode stamps provided. No, I'm just gonna keep going. What you'll need is a 5mm or 6mm crochet hook, yarn suitable to the hook size you'll be working with, buttons, ribbons, darning needle, sewing needle, 1-inch bar pins, and keychain clips. For the I-cord ribbon, which is optional, you'll need 3mm needles, either interchangeable or double pointed, as they're easier to work with for I-cord. And for the mohair edge, I'm using a 2.5mm steel crochet hook and any mohair of your choice. For the first row, you want to start with a magic loop and chain 1, then single crochet 7 times before slip stitching into the first chain. In this corner or side diagram, on the right? Yes. The green is the start of your row and the red is the end. The size I'm working with for this video is 5mm crochet hook, and the yarn I chose is a combination of merino wools, 2 strands, and 1 mohair strand. So I am now finishing off my first row, slipping into the first chain I made, and we are going to go into the second row. We'll start with chaining 6 and slip stitching into each single crochet of the first row. By the end of this row, you should have 7 petals. Going into the third row is where it can get a bit tricky, and this is where I kind of deviated from the original pattern on Pinterest. So instead of single crocheting and aligning the petals to the second row petals, I crocheted into the center of those petals, as I'll slowly show you here. After I have chained 2, I will take my hook, bring it to the back of one of the petals, and then into the front of the first row, and pull my loop from there to finish off my single crochet. And I will do that 6 more times to have a total of 7. And this row is to serve as a support base for the next row, which is another row of petals. So as you could see, it doesn't show from the front. Nice and concealed. I'm gonna chain another 2 and then repeat for a second time. You will do this a total of 7 times at the end of this row. Now that we finish off the third row, this is how it should look like at the back. Starting with the first petal of our fourth row, we will chain 2, 2 double crochet cluster into the first section of our third row that we've made. the little loop space, chain 2, 2 double crochet, cluster into the same space, chain 2, and single crochet in between the 2 spaces of the third row. You'll repeat this another 6 times. By the end of this row, you should have a total of 7 petals. Now that we've finished off our fourth row, this is how it should look like at the end. So I made a tiny mistake going into the fifth row. Instead of chaining 2, I chained 3, which is okay because it didn't make that much of a difference at the end, and you couldn't really tell. But after chaining your 2, you will go in between the 2 clusters from the last row and anchor it down with a single crochet. After that, you will continue to chain 3, single crochet into the 4th row for a total of 7 times. This will serve as another support base for the last row of petals. So we are in our last chain of this row, and we are going to slip stitch into the first single crochet that we started with after the first 2 chains, which could feel a little bit confusing once you get there, but I promise you, if you see that little space there, that's where I slipped my stitch to finish off this row. And this is how it should look like at the end. Last and final row, our 6th row, it is going to be the same as the 4th, where we chain 2, double crochet cluster, chain 2, double crochet cluster, chain 2, except we are adding another double crochet cluster into the chain loops we made in the previous row. So we will have a total of 3 clusters per petal. By the end of the row, you will have a total of 7 petals that should look a little something like this. For the optional I-cord ribbon, I am long tail casting on 3 stitches onto 3mm double pointed needles using a yarn combination of Rico Designs Creative Mega Bloomshin, Drops Kid Silk Mohair, and Lang Yarns Merino 400 lace. And if you don't have double pointed needles, you could also use interchangeable needles. I just find double pointed needles to be easier to work with for I-cord. And if this is your first time knitting an I-cord, it's pretty easy compared to working on it flat. The only difference is that your working yarn is at the back. So I will knit into the first stitch, bringing the working yarn from the back to the front. And I will knit a total of 60 centimeters worth of I-cord. Again, the I-cord is completely optional, so you could skip on ahead to the assembly part of the tutorial. But if you feel like the I-cord is taking too long for your liking, you can opt out to crochet your ribbon instead, just singular chain, 60 centimeters long, of course. And I'm only going to knit enough so you could see the tubular shape take form. This is really tiny, but I hope you could see. This is how your I-cord starts to form. Time to put everything together. And one thing I forgot to mention is if you want to turn this into a keychain, you will need pliers or plier tools to help you put that together. I like to start by weaving in my ends using this darning needle, and there's no specific way that I weave these in. Unlike making a sweater, it's pretty easy to just tuck it in. Like, as long as you don't see it and it looks clean to you and you're happy with it, I think that's all that matters. Same thing with the crochet flower. There's no particular method or technique. I'm just guiding the ends through the loops that are along the chain. I chose to tuck it in these areas because it's easier to find and guide through. Last strand of the crochet flower, I thought I could use it to sew in the button, so I left the mohair strand out, but then later discovered that it was too short to use, so I had to weave that in with the rest. I hate how you could see the mohair strand sticking out, but ignore it. I wove that back in. For the ribbons, all about the ribbons, this is where I tied the bow. And as you can see, it is the only chain visible at the back. And this is where we started and ended our 5th row. And I'm just going to loop. Again, if you're not using I-cord and you're just using a ribbon, you could tie it however you want. This is just where I placed it so that I could conceal it. but I'm just going to level out my I-cord as much as possible and then tie a bow on it. By now, I've already woven in the lousy mohair strand that was annoying me and threaded in a fresh one into the sewing needle using the Drops Kid Silk mohair. And the one thing I like about using mohair to sew on this button, again, you don't have to use mohair, you could just use a simple thread, is that it's known for being sticky, so I don't have to worry about the button coming loose the more I wear this out. And as you'll see, I'm gonna pull it through, and when I cut the end off, I won't have to tie it at the end and then worry about weaving in the other end into the flower. I just pull it as close to the surface as possible and weave it in the same spot 3 times, and it should stick. And if you're not satisfied with the singular ribbon, you could go in again with another ribbon of your choice. I'm choosing my polka dot ribbon and cutting it to length. I will also tie this into the same area where I tied the I-cord. For this ribbon I'm making for myself, I'm using both barb pin and keychain for that extra versatility. And as you could see, I did not sew it in at the center. I sewed it in just a tiny bit above it with the mohair strand. I also want to mention that because it is slightly above, when you sew it in and you bring it to the front, in order for it not to show, you kind of want to sew it into the yarn. So you bring it to the front and then you go, almost like how I'm weaving it here, so that the mohair stitch isn't visible at the front. turning it into a keychain, I'm of course going to center it with the ribbon and the barb pin. But the way I want it to hang off my bag is that I kind of want to conceal the keychain a bit, making it look nice and flush to my bag. The optional mohair edge, I'm using a 2.5mm steel crochet hook. So if you want to add the mohair, you could start anywhere on the flower, but I'm basically going to single crochet along the edge here by pulling this loop like it's already a crochet stitch. And my rule of thumb when working the edge, like I did in my previous ones, is I would single crochet into the same chain as I went along. I'm only going to work enough of the edge to show you how it looks. I'm not going to add this for this version of the ribbon. Okay, and that was what? 71, 87, this is 2, 158, 160 takes for voiceover clips. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I enjoyed making them and gifting them to my friends. If you made one and completed it throughout the end, please tag me either in Instagram or Pinterest or whichever platform you use. I'm really excited to see how some of yours turned out, or if you added more renditions to it. I really love to see any, especially maximalist. I like to see things maximalized. I feel like with this tutorial, because I want it to be open to beginners, I just want it to be as simple as possible. So please share if you've completed it to the very end and added more than what I did in this video. I'd really love to see all your creative visions and ideas. Thank you, and I'll see you guys soon.